Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we're here for another short story discussion here on the channel. Today's short story discussion comes to us from the American Short Stories 2nd edition Oxford book, edited by Joyce Carol Oates. Screwed that whole thing up. It is the Oxford Book of American Short Stories 2nd edition from Miss Oates. From Miss Carol Oates. Joyce Carol Oates. I'm just now realizing that I have no idea if her last name is Carol Oates or just Oates. If she's going by her first, middle, and last name, or first and double last name. No idea. But in continuing with having no idea about Joyce Carol Oates, Joyce Carol Oates chooses to list Mark Twain here as Samuel Clemens. Mark Twain chose to be known as Mark Twain. The short story in question is Cannibalism in the Cars, and one of Joyce Carol Oates' stated goals with this 2nd edition collection of the Oxford Book of American Short Stories was known names and unknown titles. Well, Joyce, you've won. I have never heard of this short story from Mark Twain. But I found it pretty amusing, so I thought I would bring it to the channel. Cannibalism in the Car. So what happens here? We get this story filtered to us from our speaker through someone else. That is, someone, the congressman in question, is telling this story to the speaker, who is then relaying it to us. I am not sure why that is necessary. But if you look back, it happened a lot with storytellers in the 1800s. I think part of it was just sort of the genre finding its footing, right? Just in the same way that we have tropes pop up early in any form, and then they die away. This filtering of short stories sort of died away, and I think for good cause. There's no reason to filter this story, just give us what actually happened. This is sort of double filtered. It is being told to us through a speaker to whom it was told by a participant. Why not just give us the event in which that participant had participated? But nonetheless, two men are sitting with each other on a train, and one starts telling the other of a former train trip that he had taken. He had taken this train trip as a congressman, and the train got stuck in a snowstorm. After 7 days, the congressman resorted, of course, and obviously, as per the title, to cannibalism. After the storyteller leaves, our speaker seeks out the conductor, who then tells us that guy's kind of just crazy. He's always telling this story. So we are sort of left in limbo because the story. Well, here, let me give you this paragraph. This is the penultimate paragraph of the story, as the conductor is telling our speaker this. He was a member of Congress. It's going to go poorly. He was a member of Congress once, and a good one, but he got caught in a snowdrift in the cars and like to have been starved to death. He got so frostbitten and frozen up generally, and used up for what of something to eat, that he was sick and out of his head 2 or 3 months afterwards. He is all right now, only he is a monomaniac. And when he gets on that old subject, he never stops till he has eat up that whole carload of people he talks about. He would have finished the crowd by this time, only he had to get out of here. He has got their names as passed as ABC. When he gets them all eat up but himself, he always says, then the hour for the unusual election for breakfast having arrived, and there being no opposition, I was duly elected. After which, there being no objections offered, I resigned. Thus, I am here. So, we got a little bit of a different ending from the storyteller to our speaker this time. So we're left to wonder how much of that story is true. Is any of it true? The conductor here seems pretty sure to tell us, yeah, no, he was a congressman and a good one. But this XYZ happened. However, with multiple endings and with what might be relayed as numerous exaggerations or underplayed monstrosities, horrific events that are played off as just, we had supper. We're left, I think, to question the veracity of any of it. But so here's what it's funny. It's a funny short story, as Mark Twain was one to write, and here's the funny thing about it. It takes the Congress people a week to even make a decision, to decide what to do. And when they decide what to do, it is something that is truly ghastly. They get together and decide, yeah, we better eat somebody. And once they've all agreed on it, the only thing that's left to do is take vote. So they organize and have committees and subcommittees, and they have speakers and they have votes, and they eventually get around. Well, once they're mobilized, they bicker a lot. They're mobilized into horrific things and never bicker about the horrific things. They just bicker about who they should eat. They vote on it and decide, this, that. They lobby, they vote, and then they start eating. And they keep eating. And they keep eating. Obviously, there is anti-government sentiment here. After all, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, was a good Missouri boy, and no one from the state of Missouri is trusting of the government. After all, you have got to show me. But that being set aside, there is a quote. There are many quotes from Mark Twain on government. Here is one that is especially fitting to this short story. Suppose you were an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress. But I repeat myself. That is a quote from Mark Twain. But I think, if anything here is worth talking about besides sort of the humor in the story, I think the lesson here is about the wisdom of crowds, or rather, the lesson here is about the lack thereof. One is not in moral good standing simply because he is doing the same thing as everyone else. That seems to be part of the lesson here from Mr. Twain. All of these Congress people are in absolute agreement. Yeah, we got to start eating people. Doesn't make it any less ghastly. But once they decide to start this practice of eating people, they don't just eat a person. They eat a person for breakfast, supper, and dinner for days in a row. They continue to eat people, and they make arguments on whom should be eaten based on, not anything moral. John over here from Iowa is kind of a jerk. Maybe society would be better off if we ate him. No, it's Todd from Boston, kind of a fat guy. Probably we should eat him because he'd be delicious, right? They start having those arguments. Um, and I think the next level of what could be talked about with this short story is if one is not necessarily in moral good standing based on doing simply what everyone else is doing, then society is really, really in trouble when the large groups, the in groups, the groups with any sort of influence start to demonize and punish dissenting opinions, because once dissenting opinions are disallowed, once no one is able to argue with the crowd without fear of destruction, no one is there to stop you from being eaten. Once dissent is disallowed, no one is there to stop you from being eaten.